So, yeah, we know that we don't want to take too much of your time, so we are going to do a few questions. We are really curious about a lot of things on your life, so we are not going to take you too much time. So our first question here, well, I think that it's an obvious question, and it's how are you doing today? How are you dealing with this strange situation? Why with the COVID? So how's everything there?
Well, UK is a crazy situation, obviously. A lot of people have been very ill. But me personally, I think I had the virus about 3 months ago, but didn't go to hospital, so recovered at home. And
Really?
and my wife too, and so I'm happy that it's behind me.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to hear that you're fine now. But do you have any issue, or you didn't feel anything? Do you feel ill or not at all?
Oh yeah, I felt really ill. So I felt really shit. So I was in bed for a few days. You know, it was like a real bad flu, and of course everything. You know, sense of smell gone. Very small sense of smell
Did they
now.
say that?
Taste, same. You know, same shit. But yeah, I definitely knew I was ill. But I'm very happy to be alive and be here still.
Yeah. Sad to hear that, but glad to hear that you're and
Yeah,
see that you're fine.
Yeah,
Well,
there you go.
we're happy. So we understand that well, your love for music started with Switch on Batch. So what can you tell about your musical influences?
Well, really, it's my father was the first. Like so many people, it all started in family when I was young. My father was a big classical music fan, and vinyl. He had a record. He bought records. You know, he didn't have a lot of money, but he was very much in love with playing records, and he would buy a record a month or record every 2 months or something, maybe, I don't know. And so early in my life, I heard lots of classical music, and also music at school. We had at school assembly every morning where we all got together and we would sing a hymn, a religious song, you know. So these are my earliest influences, I think, when I was, you know, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. So really,
your father has a lot of things to do with your music love, right?
he's a big influence. And I didn't realize for many years. It's only later in life I've realized that, oh, my dad, you really used to love records. And now that's what I try to, I make records now. So,
yeah,
funny.
It's funny how father influenced to the little children. That's great.
Yeah.
And you made a career on that, so that's great.
Yeah.
So talking about your...
I could say more. So that's when I was very young. My father and the church music, I suppose, started it all, and or the religious music, and listening to the popular classics at home or hearing my father enjoy it and dancing around the room listening to that. And then later, much later, really, only when I started going, then I started exploring jazz, and I had some student friends when I was a young student who were into jazz, and they turned me on to some, you know, some cool modern jazz, Miles Davis, John McLaughlin, a lot of the West Coast American jazz, you know, even Gato Barbieri, who's a Brazilian saxophone player, maybe. And gradually I expanded out from that. Electric jazz, John McLaughlin playing electric guitar, Miles Davis doing In a Silent Way, everything growing out from that and moving towards modern soft machine. There was a big British jazz rock scene that I came to love, and then into some of the great popular music.
Yeah, it's a great mix because you have jazz, church music, classical music. So it's like a lot of things that you combine in maybe electronic music today. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still love so much different music.
Yeah, it's the best way to appreciate the music. Do not
go.
focus in one kind of music. You have to listen to everything. That's a great way to see the music. Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of love for music.
So our next question here is about, well, we know that Mathematic from Sean Fox was the first album where you appear as sound engineer. What do you remember about that experience, those days?
It's a very long time ago. But before you guys were born, maybe. So what I remember is John had a very wonderful, clear vision. And one of the really clever things about John was he wanted to make a minimal electronic music record, minimal. So, and the way that he did it was by working in a very small studio with not very much equipment, with just, I think, 3 or 4 pieces of equipment, a small studio, and only 8 tracks on the tape recorder. So, because of course it was made on tape, and it was a very small tape recorder. So, as an artist, John had understood that if he wanted that, it was a great way to make. He limited his toolbox. He only had a small toolbox, and he explored the tools very deeply, and it was an amazing amount of fun. I mean, I'd never. It was just John seemed very experienced to me then. He'd already made, I think, 3 albums. I think this was his 4th album. He'd made 3 albums with Ultravox. This was his first solo album. So he knew how to make records, and I was a total beginner. So he was a mentor for me.
So he had experience. He has an idea. So he had experience.
Yeah. So he was a great mentor for me. I learned very much from John. Yeah, and John played me. John was my first introduction to mute records, because he came in one day and played Warm Leatherette by The Normal, which is the first record that was ever on Mute Records. It's a record by Daniel Miller, the founder of Mute. So John was very important in my musical life.
Yeah, another influence. So maybe talking a little about samplers. So in electronic music, when do you remember when exactly you discovered the use of sampler? What were your thoughts at that moment when you discovered that magnificent tool?
Well, again, very long time ago, but it's magic. It was like magic. Suddenly, we could record sounds from the whole world and make rhythms and melodies out of them. So that was like magic. 82, was it 1982 maybe? 1981, 82 probably, when I discovered samplers first time. I'm not sure exactly when. Very early.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's magic, and it changed the way to create music. So of course.
Yeah, and of course they're still hugely sophisticated, popular hip hop. The whole of hip hop is built on sampling. I mean, hey.
That he thinks that it was just before you start to produce Depeche Mode, right?
Yeah.
Or that.
Yeah,
that
very
time.
much same time. Yeah.
Yeah, in the early 80s, right?
Yeah, 82, I think, 82.
And it's connected to one of the questions that we have here, because you mentioned that it was on the early 80s, and we know that on the early 80s you moved to Berlin. So was it connected to your move to Berlin, or it was in London, or what can you tell about that?
No,
And that your
the samplers we discovered samplers, I think, in actually John. There's the story I've spoken about this quite a lot online anyway. But John Fox built a studio very close to where I am now, in very early 80s. It's about, I don't know, 500 meters from where my studio is now. By just a coincidence. And that is where I first started working with Depeche, and where I did a lot of early work with samplers, where we all did a lot of early work with samplers. So it's before Berlin, in London.
it was
And
okay.
John's studio was called The Garden.
You know that you studied science, is that correct? So
Yeah,
what
college,
kind of,
yeah.
what kind of science? I mean, what specialty? What kind of?
Well, physics, chemistry, cell biology. Yeah, and it's it was a big, it was a very important time for me being a student, at college when I was a student, because I met so many new people and learned about so much new shit. So, but it's not something I bought. Of course, a little bit of science goes into the electronics that in the studio, you know. But that's But it's not that it was just. I was still finding my way when I was studying science at college. I didn't know what I was going to do in my life. I was at college and I was quite good at science. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and if you listen the stories of the bands, probably the bands meet in the college or someplace like that, because you met people there and you discovered that you have a lot of common with the other people, and you create a band, or you discover your real passion, in this case music or well, engineer and that kind of thing. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I spent more time at college listening to music than I went to lectures.
Exactly. Yeah, most of the people do that, right?
This is my little mixing room. Yeah,
oh.
This is where this is my little studio in London.
Beautiful.
And I've got it with
beautiful.
my electronics. Yeah, it's nice. And I got a small setup at home, because the last 3 months, like a lot of people, I've been at home most of the time. So I've got at home, I call it my Studio B. I have a laptop and a little modular synthesizers at home as well.
So now you mentioned that you work at home, you have your own studio. So we know that you are working on an album. Is that correct? Can you tell us about
my own album?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for the first time, I've done a solo project, and it's called. I can send you. I will send you guys a link about it and the press release. I'll send you. I'm releasing it in the beginning of September on my friend's label in Brooklyn, a very small label, digital only release. It's very low budget, but I've made a beautiful record, I hope, and it's important, very important for me, because it's my first solo project. I've done some other musical collaborations. I have a project called Spiritual Friendship, which is you can see on my website, and I have another project, but these are both with my two American friends. I have another project called Naus Alpha, which you can see on my website as well, these are collaborations. But Electrogenetic, my solo record, it's the first one that I've done completely myself. So I'm very excited about it. Very excited to share it with the world.
So it's going to, are we going to have a physical format, CD, or it's going to be, okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
Maybe, I mean, we thought about making some CDs, but I don't want to have 200 CDs in my studio in the corner that I can't sell. So first we're going to do streaming and see if people like it. And if people like it, then maybe we'll do some CDs or cassettes. I'll show you my, like, we did, wait a minute, with my, my project with Nick Hook called Spiritual Friendship, we made cassettes.
Oh yeah.
At the time. The last time we
Wow.
put a record out. So that was really cool.
So long time since I don't see a cassette. That's great to
Yeah,
see.